Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Open Discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the Marvel movie Werewolf by Night. So we will be going into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't seen the film, it's on Disney Plus. Go check it out on there, and then come back and see what we have to say about it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So, Werewolf by Night. I had no idea this was coming out. From what I'm told, people were saying that it was well marketed, so it was just something that kind of flew under my radar specifically. But when it did come out, I was surprised because it was something that was more horror based, and we were just talking about how it what that it was going oh we were talking about how like black and white films, and this is another film, or this movie is kind of done in this kind of homage to the classic horror movies from way back in the day, and it has a like nice little aesthetic to it in that way. But yeah, let's go ahead and just I want to know what your thoughts are on Cheryl, because when I got into this movie I had no idea who this was going to be about, and then it hit me like a lightning bolt. Like near the end of the film, I realized who the characters were, or at least who one of the characters were, and then I got even more excited about that, what that could mean potentially for the future of the MCU. But I don't think you would even. The character's obscure for me, so I'm pretty sure the characters are obscure for you completely. Like all these characters are probably new for you. So I'm curious, like where you fell on this.
Yeah, all the characters are new for me. I had no idea that there's any continuation until literally just now when you said so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like the way I perceived it is it's like a standalone short, like a long short. I feel like it's not quite a movie, but it's not quite a short.
Yeah.
It's in that sweet spot in between, but it's like long enough to tell a solid story.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. There was nothing about it that really made me go like, "Ooh, I want to see more. I want to know more about this world," because it was pretty like nicely book
Contained.
ended. Yeah. It was just very self contained, but I kind of enjoyed it. At first, I was like, "Oh, I'm not really into seeing." Black and white stuff when it doesn't need to be because we have
Mm-hmm.
color technology now. So, like, why are we doing this? But the more I watched it, the more I was like, I actually appreciate how, they're going back to um, this stylized way of shooting films and
Mm-hmm.
really utilizing the way that you can use black and white to benefit the production,
Yeah.
and the design of it, and I could really see it. And it did kind of bring me back to like the way like the old movies were made, and it just looks really cool. And I think they
Mm-hmm.
made a lot of good choices cinematically. And so it was just like a really visually appealing film to me.
Yeah, and I think that it was one of those times when, like, when I think about things like Sin City, that's another story that's like in black and white in like the modern era, but it's to evoke that feeling of like the black and white graphic novel which it was adapted from. So stylistically, it's also a part of the story, and I feel like that's similar to this. I feel like the act of telling the story in black and white is actively a part of how they want you to experience the story. It's like an integral part in how it's filmed is integral part, because there's even moments where I'm not sure if you even noticed they actually add in the burn marks for in different frames of the film to make it feel like it's one of those old school films that you're watching when obviously it's all digital. Well, maybe they did shoot it on film, but I don't know. But point is that we're way past the point of having those burn marks appear naturally on the media that we watch. So they had to add it in aesthetically, and that's because they realized that how they wanted to tell this story, the way they were shooting was just as important for them as like the characters within the story telling their own experiences. So just from that, and even the music is kind of evokes similar feelings when they have some really cool shots in here. There's a shot where Elsa is in a cage, and uh, I forget what's his name, Jack. I forget the
Jack.
werewolf's
Yeah.
Jack. Okay, yeah, and he's transforming, and it's just on her and just panning in slowly on her while you hear the music, and it's very like thrilling and whatnot. But you see him transforming in shadow as the lights flash on and off, and she's just sitting there looking terrified. And I'm like, yo, this is like a really cool thing. And I was thinking to myself, this works because it's black and white. I don't know if this would work as well if it was in color, but in this moment, I'm like really enjoying it. And the other reason I think that they did this in black and white is because it gave Disney an excuse to be more bloody with this story, because I think this might be Disney's bloodiest Marvel picture or Marvel property that they've released since like yeah, since they've been doing like Marvel television shows. Like the Netflix stuff wasn't them.
Yeah, and like that's exactly what I mean is the choices or like the choice to make it an old timey black and white style film gives a lot of flexibility in ways that we don't do anymore because we have the technology to make things look more realistic. So in a way, it is kind of hokey. Like even the werewolf makeup is kind of hokey. Like he doesn't look like a wolf at all. He literally looks like a guy in a suit, just like the old times. But like it's supposed to be that way because they did such a good job in making us feel like this is old. This is like the technology of before. And then like you were saying with the transformation scene where it's like flashes of light. Like if that was in color, it would not work. If that was like in a film that's like modern day style, like and it trying to be a scary movie, that wouldn't hold up. So like you wouldn't be able to do stuff like that if you didn't set up the film to make it like to make you as an audience feel like you're watching something old.
Yeah,
And it is a lot of
absolutely.
work. Like to make something look old and feel old, that's a lot of work. A
With
lot.
modern technology, yes, like you said, absolutely. Um, so yeah, so and like you said, this is a pretty short thing. It's about 55 minutes long, so it's not like you were saying, it's not like a feature length film, but it's not exactly a short either. It's kind of like that sweet spot in the middle. It feels almost kind of like an episode. Like these are like the lengths of episodes that we would see nowadays for various television shows, but it has a self-contained story, and the characters within that story. See, I am not as familiar with Werewolf by Night, but apparently that is the name of the comic book as well. The comic book is called Werewolf by Night, and it's more about like kind of the supernatural side of the Marvel universe. And that character Jack, I was not familiar with, but there was another character that I did know. Like, and there's two characters in here that are more familiar with, but one is a little strange, and you'll recognize the crossover in a moment. But all of these like Marvel and DC, they have these characters that they steal from each other. You know, you have like Deadpool and Deathstroke, and then you have like Thanos and Darkseid. Like they constantly make alternate versions of their characters. And so in DC, you have Swamp Thing, and in Marvel, you have Man Thing. And Man Thing is the character that appears in this particular movie as the creature that the hunters are trying to kill and that Jack
Ted?
ends up saving.
You mean Ted?
Yes, Ted, because that's Ted's real name is Ted, because Ted was a human that I forget. People who know better about Man Thing can tell me, but I believe that Ted ended up in a car accident in a radiated swamp or something, or a mystical swamp, and that's how Ted becomes Man Thing. And so like Ted is Marvel's version of DC's Swamp Thing basically, and I don't know which one came first, but that's like, you know, those are the comparisons. And so that was a surprise for people who know that character. But for me, the character that I was familiar with but didn't realize until the end was Elsa Bloodstone. Because Elsa Bloodstone was a character that was playable in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which is a video game that I played with my friends. And when I was watching this, I didn't make the connection that that was that character, because I didn't just put the name together. And then it hit me like I said, like a lightning bolt near the end of the film, where I realized, oh, it's that Elsa Bloodstone, the hunter. And then all of a sudden it came together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, because it means that there is technically a supernatural side of Marvel that we could see in the future. You know, we have characters like Blade coming in as well, And that kind of got me excited as another way that Marvel can continue like telling stories that are kind of different and interesting by letting us kind of look into this whole other world that we haven't really explored in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet. So that potential got me quite excited.
That's cool. I had no idea that all these characters were from other like comics that existed in MCU. I just thought this was like a one-off thing, like that they made for Halloween or
Yeah,
something.
right.
But then I saw it was from Marvel, so I was like, oh, what is this? Like, another hero. And I actually thought it was a series. I didn't know that it was just gonna be a one-off thing. But that's interesting. I wonder if they do make more or continue if they're gonna try to hold to the old timiness. I kind of doubt it because at the end they do turn it to color, and it's interesting that they end with the song "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" because, as we all know, it's from Wizard of Oz, and Wizard of
Mm-hmm.
Oz is famous for being black and white and color. So and
Yep.
changing the color. So that should be an interesting move should they like get the chance to expand on this.
Yeah, and I thought that that change, that shift in color was really cool because of the fact that once I realized who Elsa Bloodstone was, the thing that popped in my mind was there are two qualities that I remember about her. In the comics, she has red hair and a bright red jacket. And this version of Elsa does not have red hair, but she did have a bright red jacket, and it's the first thing that comes into color when she's sitting there. And so as an extra little hey, this is for the fans. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool that they thought about that. But even when they go into color, it's still like the Technicolor like look. It still is. It's not the crisp color that we have today. It still evokes kind of that old school color film from back in the day, and I at least appreciated that. And I was also surprised that I thought that maybe Man Thing wouldn't look as good in color. I thought Man Thing was like gonna only be able to look good in black and white. But I was surprised, like seeing Man Thing in color. Ted, Ted looked pretty cool in color too. So I was like, all right, you guys did a good job.
Yeah. No, I really thought I really liked Ted. I thought that it was funny the whole idea because I thought it was just gonna be simple. Like, oh, they're gonna do the Hunger Games thing in the pit and everything, and Jack's gonna
Hmm.
come out and be like the hero, and he's gonna win the Bloodstone, and
Right.
ta-da, that end story. But it was a surprise to me that he's actually um, buddies with Ted, and that Ted's name is Ted.
So wait, did you know? Did you think that Jack was gonna be a monster?
I didn't know. It seemed
Hmm.
interesting because like we did notice that when he was going and he just seemed nervous all around,
Yeah.
and like it seemed suspicious that he had like so many kills and that his overall like um, composure is that he's nervous and like insecure as opposed to being like confident and egotistic like oh I'm the best because
Well,
it seems like if he had that many kills that's what his behavior should be like.
well, he actually didn't have any kills. He shows up and they ask him, "Are any of these people yours?" And he says no, but he does say, "I fought that one over and over again," and he points to one of the vampires that's mounted on the wall. The guy who got the most kills was the that
The big
confident
guy.
that big guy who acted actually exactly like you said. But it still is but I still agree that the question is why are you so nervous or why are you it seems like you're not really sure about being here, but you're the only person that's not sure about being here. Every other hunter that we saw was confident about why they should be here. And also if you're saying that you didn't kill any of these but you did fight them, it means that you're still kind of good, right? At what you do.
Yeah, and they were all surprised when they said that he had 100 kills, so I thought that was interesting. I should have known. They showed it to me, they rubbed it in my face, and I didn't catch it.
Yeah. And then I like the fact that when we actually get started in there, I do like how it's kind of done where they're looking for the monster, but this leads me to one of my like issues, like story wise with this. And it's fine. They had to do it. It's fine. But I remember thinking to myself, why are you killing each other? Like, I get it that you want to see who's the best to get the to be the leader to be the one that wields the bloodstone, but from the way you're making it sound is like there are a lot of creatures out there that kill people, and you need all the hunters you can get. And if you're killing, and it sounds like also hunters die doing the job because they're getting killed by creatures. So if you're killing yourself, you're actually making it harder to do the job of protecting people from the monsters that you want to protect them from. So it actually doesn't make sense to me that you guys would kill each other in this situation. So that
Yeah.
was like the only thing I couldn't get my mind around.
I was surprised too because the first time we see two people cross paths is when Jack sees Elsa and he's like, "Oh, can we just like pretend like we didn't see each other?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's
Right.
what I thought they were gonna do." And then they started fighting, and I was like, "Oh, well, I guess that's what it be because if they're fighting over a thing, like yes, it's a challenge, but it's also about winning the prize and." How do you
Yeah.
win the prize? You make sure you have no competitors. So I mean, I guess, but I was also a little surprised at first, but I came to terms with it. Okay.
Right. But yeah, so then obviously we find out it's a very simple story. They find out about Ted. They help Ted escape. Elsa wants the bloodstone because it's her birthright. It belongs in her family, so she wants it. But I think she really wants it so that she can keep it away from. I think that's her stepmom, an evil stepmother. I think. Um, and so when we get to the end, we get into this really cool action sequence, all in black and white with like flashing lights. Very gory, lots of blood, but it doesn't feel like there's lots of blood because of the fact that all the blood is black, basically. So you don't even really see it. It would have been interesting if like the blood was the only thing that was red. But yeah, so and the action was very very cool. It was cool just to like seeing they had their little Marvel loves their hallway shots, so they had Werewolf by Night version of like the Daredevil hallway fight scene where they're fighting in a slowly getting darker room as the door closes and the camera doesn't cut but just pans forward. And there's some cool stuff in this, but basically, yeah, by the end they are able to Elsa gets the bloodstone, Ted escapes, Jack escapes, happy ending. So it's not really a complicated story, but I still found myself enjoying it, but also I found myself being surprised because I didn't expect like the moment that we see the first person die, I think the person gets shot with an arrow through the bottom of their mouth. And I remember thinking to myself, I like I've been like we know Deadpool is going to come out in a couple of years, Deadpool 3. And I remember thinking to myself, with Disney controlling Deadpool, are they really going to allow it to be as raunchy as it's been in the past? And there's kind of this expectation that Disney isn't going to kind of touch certain violent themes or sexual themes. But on the case of violence, I was very surprised that this is ended up being as violent as it was.
I mean, it seems like they're kind of keeping all their different properties separate, and that's how it is. Like on Disney Plus, there's different categories for different things, and I think that makes sense because especially if they're gonna buy out properties like Marvel and Star Wars, they're gonna have to like let loose a little bit because they're not making stuff for like kids anymore. They're making stuff
Right.
for kids on their own turf, but then they're also expanding into more adult material. So I think it's correct. Bring on the blood. Bring on the gore.
Absolutely. It still has me wondering though, do you think that Disney Plus will release a rated R Marvel movie?
um, where was Deadpool rated R?
Yeah, both movies are rated R. Hard R, by the way. Very hard R.
I mean, I yeah, I can see them doing it, especially if like I almost feel like they don't really have control over the content. I mean they do, but I think it's really more of a it's under their umbrella, so they're like here's the money, go do your thing. and then just bring back more money than I
Bring
gave
back more
you.
money.
Bring back more money than I gave you.
Right? I'd be really excited about that prospect because the thing, like I said, when I was watching this, I just kept thinking to myself, "Oh man, it'd be so cool to see Elsa Bloodstone and Blade team up." And then now that I know that Jack's also a main character, maybe even Jack and Man Thing or whatever. I said it again, Amari. Um, so it'd be really, I think it would be really cool to just kind of see a kind of a supernatural, kind of almost like the supernatural Avengers. And I kind and like maybe they have to take down Dracula or something because Dracula does exist in Marvel Comics. So, and Blade historically was the first. Well, it's one of the first Marvel movies that kind of like it's the movie that helped reinvigorate Marvel and like superhero movies as a whole. But it was also a rated R movie, which is cool. And because then we kind of moved away from rated R movies up until like Deadpool and Logan again. So I'm kind of curious if when Blade shows up, if Blade is going to be rated R again, or if it's going to be rated PG-13. And at least Werewolf by Night has me hopeful. Like even like Werewolf by Night, I don't think is a R-rated short or middle film, whatever. But I do think that it's skirting that line, and that has me at least excited that it could be a possibility in the future for other properties.
Yeah, they're really gonna have to set up some really good controls on their Disney Plus content.
Exactly. So, is there any like? Do you think that you'd want to see more from this side of the Marvel universe, or are you kind of satisfied with just this little look into this world?
I'm not opposed to it. It's not really something that I like look out for. I mean,
Mm.
vampires and stuff are cool, but I like the whole dark aspect of it. I mean, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, if it's presented well and it's made well, and the storytelling is good, then I don't really care what it looks like. Um, it's really just more of the story. I think like it has to have a balance, right? Like you can make a really good looking movie and have a bad story, and then no one's
Hmm.
gonna like it. But if you have a really good story and it's not made well, then it can be forgiven because the story was so good. But you can
Hmm.
have an average story that looks really good and you'll be okay with it.
Right, right. Well, I mean, what is there anything else that you kind of wanted to say about Werewolf by Night? Like I said, it's a pretty straightforward, self-explanatory, short, I guess. So I kind of got everything that I wanted to really touch on. But was there anything that we kind of missed that you want to bring up?
I was a little confused because when Jack leaves the room, like after the fight, like there's this whole thing with that door like slowly
Mm-hmm.
closing, and then he's like trapped and everything. And then, I mean, he's trapped, but then like after the fight's over, he just opens a
Leaves through a
door
back
and
door.
yeah, and then leaves. I'm like, what's the whole point of having a dramatic door then?
I thought the same thing. I was like, "Yo, dude, like this place isn't that well designed. If you know all the doors don't close and lock,
Yeah.
like what?"
Yeah, that was the only thing.
Hmm. No, I think that that's very fair. I noticed that too, and that was quite funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we thought about Werewolf by Night. Have you seen it? It's on Disney Plus. What did you think about it? Are you curious and excited about seeing other Disney Plus supernatural Marvel stories come out? Do you want to see Elsa Bloodstone, Jack and Blade team up with Man Thing and like take on some type of supernatural threat that the Avengers don't know about? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next